Welcome to the Sage Family Podcast, where we explore natural homeschooling, gentle parenting, simple living, and family adventure.
I'm Rachel Rainbolt, the Sage Family Mentor, coming to you from an island in the Pacific Northwest, where I live wild and free in connection with my hilarious husband and 3 growing sailors in our fixer-upper on the beach. So join us around the campfire and let's get living the family life of our dreams. This is episode 99, and today I'm here with Dr. Darcia Narvaez talking about the evolved nest. Darcia, Professor Emerita of Psychology at the University of Notre Dame, is Fellow of American Psychological Association, American Educational Research Association, Association for Psychological Science, and the American Association for the Advancement of Science. She studies evolved morality, child development, and human flourishing in a transdisciplinary manner. Her book, Neurobiology and the Development of Human Morality, Evolution, Culture, and Wisdom, won multiple awards. Recent books include Restoring the Kinship Worldview, The Evolved Nest, and Reimagining Humanity. She is president of kindredworld.org and host of evolvednest.org. The Sage Mothering course is evolving into such a beautiful and valuable offering that I am so excited and honored to bring to life for you. I am creating the final lessons now, so if you want to be included in the special offer when it goes live, sign up at sagefamily.com/mother. I have been following Darcia's work for many years. I found her in my early years of mothering as I was aligning my clinical work in family therapy with my personal evolution as a mother, and she continues to be a source of inspiration to me. Her newest book, The Evolved Nest, feels like reconnecting with deeply true and nourishing wisdom. It's like if Braiding Sweetgrass was a parenting book. Thank you for the gift of this book for the world, Darcia, and for all your work, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's a delight to be with you, Rachel.
Will you introduce yourself and share a bit about who you are and what you're passionate about?
Sure. I'm a member of the Earth community. That's my identity. And I spent half my childhood outside the country, which contributed to that sense, but it's taken me through my adulthood to find out how important indigenous wisdom is of our ancestors, all our ancestors. We wouldn't be here unless they were wise and knew how to live a wellness-informed way. And that's where I find our connection to the rest of the natural world. So in the book, the recent book, animal nests are described and discussed with my no disgusting.
We're not disgusted.
Although people may not like to hear about animals, and anyway, but they might. It's the intention of that book was to try to bring people into the evolved nest through learning about animal nests and how similar they are to ours, and look at that, and how nurturing they are, and how we can be too. And that's where our evolved nest is, rooted in the tree of life, to be nurturing and to raise people who are well and wise. So that's my work these days, is to try to get the word out and try to bring people in. And so finding different ways to talk about it and to explain it, that's what I'm about.
Yes. Okay. So what is the evolved nest like as a concept? Based on everything you just described, I'm thinking it's sort of like the way that evolution sort of wove through us to raise children, to be raised as humans. Does that sound, am I on the right track there?
Yes. So we've been around for, depending on how you count it, 2 million years. And we descended, other animals have been around far longer. And they have had nest characteristics, the way they raise their young. And ours are very much like social mammal nests. with some slight differences. And the nest is works so well. It's a system to raise the young that works so well that it was conserved across animals, across the tree of life, across generations, across millions of years of our existence, because it keeps you alive, so you survive, but also you need to thrive in order to reproduce, and then across generations, have success versus those who aren't nested, right? So those who are nested are going to be stronger and more fit and have more grandchildren and great grandchildren. And so evolution has done the experiments essentially. And so we don't have to test whether breast milk is better than formula and do all those crazy things that researchers do, because they don't have any baseline for what's normal for our species in raising children, which I call species typical.
So I homeschooled my kids in a very natural way. It reminds me of that quote by Carol Black: collecting data on human learning based on children's behavior in school is like collecting data on killer whales based on their behavior at SeaWorld. And everything you said is just really it's bringing that quote to mind.
Yeah.
Okay, what do brown bears teach us should go into the decision to have a child?
Well, I think usually humans, at least in the dominant culture, think that animals don't make decisions and they're kind of just instincts that they follow. But the evidence shows that brown bears actually do make decisions about whether to have a child, an offspring. And depending on, what the environment is like, if there's enough food, if things are going to be stable enough to raise the young, right? And so they do have some choices about that. And we do too, actually.
Yeah, I think that oftentimes in this conversation about raising children, we sort of skip over that initial decision point of taking a minute and evaluating what is the goodness of fit for the environment that I am presently in this moment for, having a child. Is this a good fit right now in this place, in this time?
You're right. That's right. And a lot of young people are deciding not to have children.
Yeah.
They don't think the world is going to last that long, or there's enough support for them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. What can African elephants teach us about mutual accompaniment?
Well, an African infant or newborn falls out of the mother. Gravity brings the baby out, but it's not mom by herself. It's like she's surrounded by aunts and grandmother and siblings of that baby elephant. So there's no separation, really. I mean, from mom, of course, the bodies separate, but the accompaniment is psychological, it's social, it's being with one another, and they surround that child and guide the child forward in whatever pathway they are all going. They stick together. And that's something we can learn too, which our ancestors knew, that it takes a village to raise the young. We're not intended to be isolated, a mother and baby or mother and father and baby. This is crazy stuff because the baby needs so much and the mother needs support from the others who know better, more experience, how to raise that child, how to nurture and be responsive. And moms who feel like they're supported are more responsive. This is what the research shows, are more responsive to their babies and their young children.
Absolutely. I remember in my early days in the therapy world, sort of specializing in working with mothers of infants, mothers making that transition. And there was such an individualized focus on postpartum depression. And I felt like I was this sort of only voice sort of yelling, at the world, like, this is a cultural disorder, like not an individual disorder. Of course, these women are struggling. They are abandoned, alone, with no role modeling around them, no direct hands-on support, woven, like integrated into their lives. We were not built to have children this way and to raise children this way. Of course, they're not thriving.
That's right. We evolved to have a kind of a laying in period where you just are waited on. The mother's waited on, and so she can
Yes.
focus on the baby and bonding and breastfeeding and getting a lot of nurturance herself, so she can be nurturing to the child. And it's not we're not intended to just be do it on your own, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, which is an impossibility. Come on, moms, what's wrong with you, right? And so we get into mom shaming, but it should be culture shaming that we do.
Yeah. Yes, I completely agree. What can sperm whales teach us about breastfeeding?
Breastfeeding, magical elixir of life. My goodness, unbelievable stuff. It cures what? Pink eye, ear infection. If you have one of these, find find a breastfeeding mother and ask for a gift. It's amazing, and it's our all species. It's well, not all species, but our milk is thin and needs to be ingested frequently. And we then evolved to be really skin to skin on our mothers or others. Other people breastfeed too, not just mom to the
Mhm.
child. Some cultures and so that the baby is directing. It's infant directed breastfeeding. They get to decide when they need it. When the breast is right there, they can reach for it, which is just perfect because it's got all these ingredients to build the brain, which is growing so quickly every second, building synapses, connections, brain connections in the brain cells, neurons, and so it's really important so that to let that baby allow the baby to decide and feed themselves essentially. So it's a way of well, even at birth, when under natural conditions, the baby crawls up the belly of the mother and stimulates the nipple of the mom to start the oxytocin flow to let the milk down. Talk about feeling competent and confident, what a way to start life. So that's what we should be doing with our children and our newborns. And then the baby should be able to feed as long as they need, which for us is 4 years on average. I know it's like, what? What? But our milk is thin and our maturational schedule is slow. And we need that much time to build the immune system, even longer for boys. Boys are less resilient. They have less built-in resilience. They need more nurturing. They are more easily traumatized and humiliated, which then leads them to not develop properly in the social ways that we develop after birth. We're born, with all these innate survival systems for, just surviving. The fear system, the panic system, the anger system. But to be a human being, our fullness requires you have to learn all this social skills and all this nonverbal, how to, recognize emotions, how to start a conversation or not. That a lot of that stuff happens before language, and you need more time. Boys need more of that experience. But you get that from the nest, which is, you're skin to skin. You have all these supportive, accompanying allo parents, allo mothers, other nurturers who are there to help you grow all that, so all those social skills from the whole nestedness. And breast milk then builds the smart, intelligent brain that works so well quickly, and the speed, is one of the signs of intelligence. It builds the whole system. Has strong bones. In the old days, when we were hunter gatherers, and our cousins who are hunter gatherers, they want to breastfeed at least 4 years because that builds the bones strong enough so that you can walk for miles and miles, 100 miles a day, perhaps,
Wow.
carrying things. And we kind of have lost that notion. We have we've gotten quite weak in
Yeah.
in hierarchical civilization. So
Yes, normalizing like breastfeeding on cue, full term breastfeeding for human mammals,
Yeah.
I think is such an important message. And, when my kids were younger and they were in that season and I was breastfeeding for years, breastfed them all for many years, like it was a conversation I frequently found myself in. And sort of the farther I get from that as my children get older, the less I talk about it. So I love that. Like we have this conversation today that I can share with my listeners who've sort of, been growing up along with my own children, that like I breastfed my children for years. They are healthy and thriving and independent and wonderful. And even just saying that, like if that can normalize that a bit, like I'm here for it.
Yeah. Wonderful. Lucky kids.
Okay, what can emperor penguins teach us about sharing care?
Yeah, so this is the alloparents again. Uh, so in the emperor penguin's nest, the mother has the egg and then transfers it to the father and goes off. She leaves for months to go feed because she's, spent a lot of energy creating the egg. And he and the other fathers huddle together in the cold of the Antarctic, and they keep each other warm, and they, keep shifting who's in the inside, the warmest part of the huddle, with the outside. And they wait then for the egg to hatch. And once it's hatching, the mother typically is coming back already, and then then the father goes off, and they share the feeding, right? They regurgitate food. This is what birds often do, to for the young, and so it's this flow, the flow
Mm.
of sharing, the caring, so that you're not, no one's burdened too much. We evolved to have kind of this, again, the village. So it's not just the father of the young, but the whole village. So other mothers might breastfeed. Even the father or grandfather will suckle the baby, if even though they don't have milk, to calm the baby, for example. And so it's a flow that's oriented to meeting the basic needs of the young. They're central. They're to the success of society.
That's so beautiful. I've been having a lot of conversations on this podcast about emotional labor, domestic labor, like mental load and the unfair burden the inequality that exists culturally around that right now. And so I loved to see in your book like the highlighting of how shared the care can be in our animal kin, and how we can really learn from that and bring that into the way that we live and raise young today, because it's a really important thing for us to talk about and for us to shift.
Right. So everybody needs a break, right? I mean, to expect the mother to do the evolved nest on her own, carrying the baby all the time, breastfeeding on request or on demand or infant initiated, uh, it's a lot. And so she needs to, let the baby crawl sometimes. She needs to hand off the baby so she can go do things. And that's just the way it should be. We shouldn't even have an expectation that a mother is alone with a child.
Mm. Mm. That is so, even just, I'm like picturing in my mind, all the like new mothers I've worked with and all the mothers who are out there alone listening to this podcast, sitting in a dark room by themselves with their infant.
Oh,
And I really hope they receive that message that, like, if this is feeling painfully difficult, that is not a failing on your part. It is not a brokenness within you. It is an absence of a birthright, really,
yeah,
for you and your child. Like, so just to sort of like depathologize that, in the hearts and minds of all of the mothers who are listening.
yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah.
All right. What can beavers teach us about free play? This was a fun chapter in your book.
Oh, we all think about beavers as hard workers. Look, they're building lodges, they're cutting down trees, they're dragging them to build a dam. Oh my God, these poor creatures must be worn out. No, they play. Also, in between, they'll have little games and they'll, swim around and play tag almost, especially the young ones. And they are, not only working. We're so miserable because we think that you should be working like 24/7 now in this
Mm.
society, at least the United States. There's hardly any vacation time paid for. In Europe, they even have where they have national health care. They will recommend sometimes to a person, go to the beach, go hang out on the beach. You need to, get some more vitamin D. You need to relax. Get a massage. So they understand that humans are not meant to be worker bees or worker ants. We are meant to play, and play is so healthy and healing. I always recommend to people who haven't had the evolved nest growing up, go find a child from 1 to 6 and play with them, because that child will expect you to be in the moment, presently there, emotionally, cognitively, or they'll stop playing with you. So you have to learn to be there and react and respond, and that's going to grow your right hemisphere, which otherwise is underdeveloped in unnested folks. And the right hemisphere is what builds empathy, allows us to feel connected to others and aware that life is dynamic and flowing, not a set of categories. That's all left brain stuff, which school teaches us. And so the right hemisphere also allows us to leave ourselves and feel transcendence, to have a connection to higher consciousness, that we're one with all, that there's a wholeness in the world. So you want to build that right hemisphere as much as possible. In my classes, I would play folk song games because I used to be a music teacher. With my college students, we'd play, hunting we will go, hunting we will go. We'll catch a little fox and put him in a box, and then we'll let him go. And you're, hanging on to each other, and you're moving around your body, fostering the vagus nerve, which is also related to all health systems, all systems of the body, good health. And then you're looking people in the eye, and you're singing, and you're laughing, and then we go play with kindergartners. We teach the songs to the kindergartners. Oh my God, they get into it. They're jumping around, so excited, and the college students are going, "Whoa, I guess life can be joyful."
Oh,
Yeah.
oh man, that's such a profound lesson. I know there are so many unnested adults trying, like, who believe in the value of play for their own children. Like, they've done the intellectual work of like learning that and understanding that. Like, we had an episode of this podcast with Peter Gray all about play. And like, yeah, I like how you described it as like that right hemisphere of the brain can be underdeveloped. Like, I know that is a lot of work. That is an area of growth that a lot of parents are really trying to lean into and trying to accept the invitation for, of how to enjoy playing, how to reconnect with play. Because when their children invite them to play, it feels miserable and forced and awkward and uncomfortable, and they're struggling with it. Do you have any advice for them?
Hmm. Well, you have to get rid of the toys mostly, and to go outside and let the child take risks. We learn from taking risks, and parents are kind of overprotective now in so many ways. But play chase, play tag. That's the first thing. And then, pretend, play hide and seek, and pretend to be an animal of this or that, and just be silly. I know adults, because the left brain is so dominant, and has categories about, adults are this way and not that way. And if I look that way, oh my God, the world's going to fall apart, right? So you have to let go of that and be present with your child. Follow the child. One of my favorite books is Playful Parenting. And this is how you build attachment with your child through play. And if you've had, various issues in your relationship, or there's been some trauma or something, you can get back connected through play. And, even letting your playing, having a pillow fight and letting your child hit you with a pillow and then you pretend to fall over and die or something. Young children love that. And then you start to connect again and you be silly. Let yourself be silly. I have
Yes.
some writing on, how to, I think our Evolved Nest curriculum in the play section has instructions for how to play as an adult, how to get back to it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I love how you bring that like freedom piece in, because it is true that so many adults have this idea because of consumerism and marketing, right? That play is like this toy that you do what it says to do, and you sit in the room and you do it together over and over. But like like we need the freedom to reconnect with a more like natural form of playing. And that often involves risk and discomfort. And it's funny because today is Monday, yesterday was actually Mother's Day, and we took a hike to this waterfall. And looking out over the waterfall, there was sort of this lookout point with like a rail on it. And as soon as we got there, all three of my children immediately scaled the railing and took off over those slippery rocks. And at one point, they got to this spot where they were about to leap over like this area of the fall onto the other side to scale up, like mountain goat up these cliffs. And they paused and they were like, Mom, come on. Like, let's go. So of course I had to take off over the rail and go with them. We found this like magical swimming hole, and they spent like hours swimming in this swimming hole. And then we sort of got back and climbed back over the rail. And there were all of these other like parents and children standing there watching and sort of gawking, gawking a bit. But also like they did not look like they were having very much fun.
Wow, good for you. That's so marvelous. What a wonderful family you have. Oh,
Thank you. But yeah, the freedom and the risk and the like, yes, and the being out in nature, all of that. Like, I love when I have those moments, and I always try and like just be so present with them and just appreciate like I love this culture that like we've built. And I love, especially now that my kids are 18 and 15 and 12, like really the benefits are so tangible of like that investment when they're younger. When they're younger, it can be harder to lean into trust and freedom, especially if you were not raised in that way. But it is so worthwhile. Like it pays off in all these really tangible, awesome, rewarding ways when they're older. So I love that. And then the other piece I just wanted to bring in was that we often have this conception of play as being so separate from like work or from other things. And really play, like the beavers, like playfulness is like a quality that they bring to so much of the things that they do that could have been categorized as work, right? Like my husband and I are always renovating our house. And when we do these house projects, like it feels like play for us. Like we're laughing and making mistakes and taking risks. And it feels playful, like you can bring that play into things that other people, if they don't bring that energy, it's a really different experience.
yeah. Yeah. Our ancestral context, that's hunter-gatherer civilization. That's where we spent 99% of our history, the human genus on the planet. They play throughout the day. I mean, the whole life is about play, teasing and laughing, so much laughing and dancing and singing together. And it's just a joyful experience.
Yeah, yeah, we can do that while we gather. We can do that while we hunt. Bring that playfulness. I love it. What can Amazon parrots teach us about touch?
Touch, so important, not only for mammals, but for birds, right? In different ways. They don't cuddle up in quite the same way, but they do cuddle. You've seen pictures of, owlets, little baby owls or something. They're all hanging together. Um, touch is part of play as well, but it's something that's, more obviously physical. And for us, human beings, we need it to grow that vagus nerve properly. It's innervates all the systems of the body. And we are mammals and have so many systems that are similar to mammals, and we can see in the animal studies, which you can't do with humans, how it grows the brain, how it calms you down, how it creates a stress response system that's not so reactive. And we can learn to touch. I know if you haven't had much touch, your vagus nerve probably isn't set up properly, and you
Mm.
have more trouble with intimacy because the vagus nerve is about not only calming you in after stress, but also about reaching out to others, social engagement. So touch is something that is part of the social mammal, especially for growth. The right hemisphere is supposed to be growing more, scheduled to grow more rapidly in the early years of life, the first couple years of life, and so touch is part of that growth of the right hemisphere.
Yeah, and I think sort of the modern picture of like an infant in my brain, I mean, not based on my experience of parenting my own children, but my picture, the picture that comes to mind when I think of like a typical modern, parenting dyad is like the little one in a plastic container of some sort, right? Like in a stroller, in a like a car seat carrier, in a high chair, whatever all the things are, right? And so we're sort of, when we separate touch, like when we remove that as part of like the everyday routine, like the way we live our lives, all of a sudden, like we're removing this piece that's so huge and so significant. And it's not so hard to just like bring that piece back in and just keep doing the same things, but you just do them like with the touch.
Yeah, yeah, and it's linked to all sorts of positive health outcomes. Um,
Yeah.
so decreased depression and all sorts of things, and it helps us kind of maintain our centeredness when we're
Mm.
touched affectionately. On the other hand, negative touch, so spanking, and in a study just in the last few years, 50% of parents said they spanked their 1-year-olds.
Oh.
Well, the problem with spanking is that it actually misdirects then the trajectory for health. It makes the child more likely to be non-compliant, out of sight, more aggressive, less empathic towards others. So it actually has a long-term negative effects over time. There's quite a number of research studies to show this. So I think parents get frustrated because they're not supported, and then they will
Mhm.
reach out with some kind of punishment, and they don't realize that there's a long-term effect on their child because they feel relief.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't want to poison the touch well.
Yeah,
Like there are so many studies confirming time and time and time again that that is not the way. Like it's not effective. Even if you want to set aside like ethical, moral, long term, all of that, it's just not effective either. And like you talked about, it really like miswires touch from being something that we gain immense benefit from. Like it triggers this cascade of, right, like oxytocin and serotonin and all of these wonderful, feelings of safety and connection and love and belonging, and sort of rewires that in an unnatural way to like touch is scary, it's unsafe, it's dangerous. And
right.
yet we still need it. And so we're craving this thing that we're reactive to, and it just sets up these attachment cycles that, so many adults are struggling with.
And then you use aggressive or violent touch instead.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. 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 Ooh, okay. What can octopuses teach us about emotions?
Oh, emotions and the octopus, amazing. The octopus is now considered to have consciousness and is so intelligent that octopus can just fit itself into a small pipe, and they've escaped like from aquariums uh, by this, and they recognize people and will I think spit on the good ones they don't like. And yeah, but they change colors and their whole visage changes based on their emotions or trying to camouflage and all. We also have emotion systems that are designed to help us live well. And when you don't provide the nest, the emotion systems can be set up in dysregulated ways, right? You don't trust yourself if you cry or as a baby and no one comes. Then you get the message that, oh, whatever this feeling is, don't pay attention to it. And you distrust then the other person, the relationship as well. And the world isn't safe, right? So all those messages get built into the child's sense of the world and self. And so you start to shut down your spirit, which is, very much entwined with your emotion systems, which are intelligent. They're there to be, wise guides for guiding you in safety and love and beauty. And so you're misdirecting again the development of really key parts of the self when you don't provide the nest.
Yeah. God, I love you even referenced that documentary, My Octopus Teacher. Was that? I love that. I watched that years ago with my kids and we loved it. It was so good. There was also this book I read recently. It was a novel, it was fiction. And I'll put a link in the show notes because I can't remember the title off the top of my head. But it was a novel, it was fiction, it was set in Washington State, and one of the main characters was an octopus that was sort of personified and was like a character. They would switch every other chapter. It was from the perspective of the woman caring for the octopus, and then it was from the octopus, and it was
Wow.
fabulous. It was fabulous. Um, but I love how much like credit and like attention octopuses are getting right now because we have so much that we can learn from them. And so I love that you featured them in your book. And I think this conversation about emotions is so important. I think we sort of had this whole generation of humans that where the emotional lives of humans were like deleted from the book. Like we were told like that doesn't matter. Like you just train children. It's 100% behavioral. Attachment doesn't like we're getting rid of attachment, we're getting rid of breastfeeding, we're getting rid of co-sleeping. Crying is a form of attempted manipulation, right? There was this like generation where that was like the wave of psychology that sort of washed over our culture. And I feel like we are still recovering from that. Like we're still reclaiming like emotions are very valuable signals. And like, so much of the work I do as a therapist with people is like reclaiming that like indigenous wisdom, that intuitive knowledge, that connection with the self that comes from like valuing your emotional world. And the thing is, when we try to exile it, like it almost like turns against us. Like we experience our emotional selves as an enemy when really like we were always meant to be in connection. We were meant to be allies and friends, and they were meant to be this beautifully integrated part of us.
Yeah, and they can misdirect us too when they're not guided properly in early life, right? So you can get scared
Yes.
all the time from anything new, which is
Mm-hmm.
not very helpful for growth, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you have to kind of revamp them if you traumatized or undercared for.
Yeah, a lot of times when I work with clients, like anxiety is a big part of the conversation. And at first, we sort of have to relate to them like a tantruming toddler, right? Like a dysregulated toddler. Like that's sort of like the stage of development that like their protector is in. And then when we can connect with them, like hear what they have to say, be present with them, really, listen to them, validate them. It makes perfect sense that you would, be afraid of this thing and then like it grow them up together, right? Like move beyond that stage of development, like with that part of yourself. Such tremendous, amazing, incredible, like peace and growth comes from that.
Yeah. If
Yeah.
only we would nurture our children in the village from the beginning so that you wouldn't have to do all this repair work.
Yes, yes. And that's like the work that I do, the mission I have in life is that like we're doing this for ourselves and for our children. So like our children don't have to do this, they don't have to live their whole lives in this deficit. Like they get this from the beginning. If we raise our children within this evolved nest, there's not, all of this recovery work. Like they just get to start off this really whole way that they were designed to start off with,
And
which,
reach their
oh,
full potential,
yes.
which we need now with all the crises that the unnested, traumatized people have created, really.
Oh my goodness, yes. What can gray wolves teach us about moral commitment?
We had a story in there about a couple, a wolf couple, where the female was killed, and the male goes back and visits and visits and visits his partner. Now, in the family case, again, this is a village of a mini village of wolves that care for the young, and it doesn't matter if it's necessarily if they're related, but they will always assist with caring for the young, as the mother or father have to go look for food and bring it back. And this is something that, again, is part of our village of care, that it's a moral commitment that we provide for those basic needs of the young, that we are together responsible for cultural perpetuity. One of the things, Abraham Maslow, everybody knows his name as having the hierarchy of basic needs. Well, he got that idea from the Blackfoot Nation, but he kind of got it upside down and backwards. So for them, the first step is self-actualization. And the way you promote that is through all those basic needs being met together at the beginning in babyhood, right? And as that individual then self-actualizes, they unfold their uniqueness, their beauty, their spirit, their intuitions, their connectedness to the whole community. Well, that enables the community actualization, because each one needs to reach their potential in order for the community to be able to operate at a level of their potential. And the aim of that is to last into the future for future generations. 7 generations typically is talked about, right? But you want to always be aware that you're in this vertical, horizontal kind of nestedness, that you honor the ancestors, but you also honor future generations. So the moral commitment then is a grand commitment. It's honoring our ancestors who were so wise to provide the evolved nest to their young, so that our parents and our ancestors had this to bring us to life, and then to make sure that we keep that going into the future by honoring the needs of all, by keeping the community together in a way that's respectful of the dignity of all.
Hmm. Yes. Caring for others, caring for the non-human world, caring for all of our kin in every definition, every living being that could fall under that umbrella. That is a beautiful way to end this journey that we have had together through this evolved nest. I would love to hear from you about, if we were incorporating all of these values and we were raising children in full alignment with the evolved nest, and we're acknowledging the reality of the world that we live in today and the constraints and limitations that might be placed on us, what might that look like? Like if we were living the evolved nest today, what does that look like? Give us it. I find it really helpful. Like if we have sort of a picture, like it helps us to set our compass there and helps us to move in that direction. It can be really hard when there's no picture for us to even like know to strive for.
Well, the little film that I created, Reimagining Humanity, is about that. It's 12 minutes long. Yes, you can reimagine humanity in 12 minutes. And that is, what does it look like? Yes, it's honoring the basic needs of all, and that's central to every community and society, and that includes the natural world. so that you don't just willy-nilly start digging things up and bulldozing mountains and whatever. You honor them, their entities too. They have energy, they're sentient. The whole earth is sentient. And so you have to shift to the indigenous worldview, which is that film is about that and what that looks like. And to, my colleague, the previous book was Restoring the Kinship Worldview. And we talked about 28 precepts that contrast the dominant culture with the indigenous worldview. And what does that mean to shift away from what we think is just normal? Isn't that the way it is, to have hierarchy or to be disrespectful of the feminine or, to want to control everything all the time. So to move away from that perspective, you have to, the evolved nest fosters the indigenous worldview because you're part of the community, the biological, ecological community. You feel. We didn't talk about nature connection and immersion, which is one of the elements of the evolved nest, where babies are outside, young children are learning to recognize the plants in their area, the animals, and feeling connected. You leave children to be able to just transcend, feel the transcendence of the world through the winds moving around, the breezes around them, for example. And that nature connection is built to then be part of how you envision your actions. It's your communal orientation includes how it affects, how my actions affect the rest of nature. So when we're in the nest, we're also building that kind of more integrated way of being a member of the earth community. And so when we think about our situation, we have built systems that are disrespectful of earth in so many ways, as if we are, the dominators and supreme beings of life. Which is an insanity that we are still perpetuating because of all the nested, traumatized people in charge. I think we either have to give them all mushrooms, psychedelics, so that they at least have an instantaneous, hopefully, experience. Awakening, yes. And then you have to maintain that. It's not enough to have just the one experience because it fades. But let's also, I always think we need to put in well-raised babies in every boardroom because when men are alone together, their testosterone levels just keep increasing and they get very rivalrous and they just want to outcompete, those other men or whatever. We didn't evolve to be isolated by sex or by age, which is also adds to competition orientation. So it's this cycle of competitive detachment, which our Breaking the Cycle film talks about, 6-minute movie, versus the cooperative companionship, which is our heritage, again, which is nestedness first to build a healthy psychological, neurobiological, social being, and then adults who become well and wise, and then they keep the cycle going, like I said, with Indigenous Blackfoot Nation. So, yeah, how do we fix it? You want me to tell you in 5 minutes, I bet. Everybody can do their thing, right? Everyone can, wherever they are, try to reconnect with our spirit. The person, even if they've been traumatized or unnested, they still have some piece of awareness to try to, blow on that little flame that's still there and bring them out to connectedness instead of robotic, just actions that systems make you do, like you're not feeling or thinking, you're just following the rules. You have to get out of that mindset and back into being, back to intentional presence. I just wrote a blog post about that mindfulness training that they've used in schools typically focuses on, what am I feeling? What's my body feeling? And how, and you think about that and you're aware of it. Didn't work. 25,000 students did not work to repair their mental health of anxiety and depression. Of course not. That's the wrong kind of mindfulness. Mindfulness of my body, a depressed person is in sickness behavior. Sickness behavior means that you get depressed because you're trying to repair you need to withdraw and let your immune system get back engaged and back together. But when you're psychologically traumatized and you get depressed, you can't get out of it. Just by thinking, that's even worse. You're putting gasoline on the fire, right? And then mindfulness is also talked about as, pay attention to what you're doing in the moment. I'm holding this pen, sitting in the chair, that kind of, that's not the right kind either. It's object relation, right? No, it's human relation. We need to feel connected to, in nature, to the tree. Notice the tree, how beautiful it is. Notice your senses open as you sit out in the forest. And we need to help each other pull out of depression by being relationally present, intelligently present to others. Which is our heritage too. It's what you do in the village. You're there and you listen. And the San Bushmen, when they're asked, when people visit, they expect when you meet someone who lives nearby, or even guests that you don't even know, you spend about 45 minutes saying hello, how are you? And everyone says hello to each other. And even if you go away for a few hours, you do it again 4 hours later. So it's all about presence and listening and honoring the dignity of the other.
Relational presence. Yes.
And relational mindfulness. That's what brings you out of depression, brings you out of anxiety, because you're here now with me and we're going to have fun together, right?
The show notes can be found at sagefamily.com/podcast99, where you can also subscribe and get future show notes sent right to your inbox. What are your favorite resources, Darcia, for people to dive deeper into this topic?
Well, our website, evolvednest.org. It has, if you scroll down that first page, you'll see the 3 movies. We say you can change your life in 30 minutes, 30 minutes of little movies. We have an Evolved Nest curriculum that's self-directed. You can download that. We have a course you can either sign up for or pay for the videos, and lots of essays, podcasts, videos, and such there. And if you want to know more about my academic work, you can Google me. I think darcianarvaez.com has some of it too.
Yes, we're going to link to all of her good stuff, her website, her academic website, the Evolved Nest site, Evolved Nest on Instagram. The films that we mentioned, we'll link there. All the books that we mentioned. Let's see. I also cannot emphasize enough how much, if I could just gift the Evolved Nest book to every parent raising children. I wish I had the capacity to do that, because I would. I bought it for my niece who has a baby, sent it her way. So please, everybody, go read her book. You will feel so nourished from having read it. It was a joy and a pleasure to read, which sometimes can be hard when we're talking about books that sort of point out a big gap between where we are and where we really should be. And yet I felt happy reading it. So thank you so much for your work, Darcia. Thank you for this conversation. And please continue shining your light into the world so we all may benefit from its warmth and its glow.
Thank you so much, Rachel. It's such a pleasure to be with you, and go team, right? I keep talking about your family and its gifts that you bring to the world. Your children are amazing. That's just marvelous. Thank you.